suddenly, for some reason, which was never clear, they threw out the treaty, bombed the living daylights out of Hanoi over Christmas, and then in the early New Year, weeks later, signed the same treaty that they'd had before.
Wow.
No, I mean it was a very strange time, but it was also the end of the war for the Americans, because the last Americans pulled out after that.
And so and by chance, are you a Vietnam vet?
No, I'm not. I protested. I am not a Vietnam vet. The character in my book is, and I have made every effort to make that as realistic as I possibly can, and gone to a number of vets to see if I got it. And they seem to indicate that I wasn't at least far off.
Do you know? A lot of people who were Vietnam War protesters were not necessarily anti-soldier, but that's the picture we get, isn't it? And when we look back on it, and not unfairly. I mean, it seems like the veterans, including one of the owners of this radio station, a Vietnam vet, and had similar stories to being looked down upon, spit upon, made to feel like they were baby killers.
I have heard that, and I'm sure it's true, because I can't use that word, idiots in every party, and anyone who did that to a serviceman coming back from Vietnam was nothing short of I'd like to meet them someday, so I put them back, and I like with the baseball bat. The difference in 1970, 70, 71, 72, and this was very different from the earlier years, 60, 65, 66, was that at that point, anyone up for the draft knew absolutely, without a doubt, that if they died in Vietnam, it would be for no purpose whatsoever. And that was the disagreement. I mean, they say they always say Americans can't stand the sight of body bags and blah, blah, blah. Not true. Americans cannot stand the sight of their children being sent out to die for no purpose. And that's the difference. And that's why the opposition was justified. The way that the veterans were treated when they came back was not, and that's not really deniable. No, it was not justified, and I'm not trying to deny it. I'm just wishing I could find one of those people and beat them up, because that was just stupid. And the more that, I was not eligible for the draft, so I wouldn't have gone anyway. And one friend of mine from high school who did go into the military and made a lifetime of it said that you couldn't, by the time we graduated in 73, you couldn't get to Vietnam anyway. I mean, you would have had to book your own flight.
Right.
They weren't sending anybody in.
Your protagonist in the book is Rick Putnam. He is a Vietnam vet, and he's a motorcycle.
He is a Vietnam vet, and he's tormented by, in 72, 73, the whole Vietnam vets were desperately attempting to re-enter American society, to do what their parents had done in World War II, and just to get back to work and go back to college and get on with their lives. And the trauma of PTSD and the utter lack of facilities had not really come to the consciousness of America yet. And yet, these guys were having to suffer through it. And Rick sleeps about maybe 3 hours a night if he can exhaust himself into it. He's lifting weights obsessively because he took tremendous wounds and in a battle, and is rebuilding his body so that it'll just work. And that's based on a friend of mine. He runs motorcycles really fast, and the reason is because when you do that, and I've done that, you can't think of anything else. It absolutely clears out every other thought in your mind as you're attempting to keep from dying. And he found a job where he could get paid to do that, which is he's a motorcycle courier in Washington, and what they did at that point was the news was shot on film. You got to remember, we had no faxes, no computers, no emails, no touch cell phones, nothing.
Right.
And we shot with film, 16 millimeter color reverse, and it had to get back to the studio in 42 minutes before air to get through the process. And so there were about 20, 30 men and women around Washington, mostly on rather large motorcycles, who would rip through town at top speed, trying to get these little silver cans back to the bureau in time.
By the way, if you're old enough to remember Easy Rider, when you're reading Courier, not that there's a similarity in the storylines at all, but you will hear the Easy Rider soundtrack in your head while you're reading this book. It's got that same. I don't know if it's because of the era or because of the motorcycle, but it's got that same. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Has anybody else told you that?
Motorcycles are just cool.
Well, you know that don't Bogart that joint, my friend. Remember that song?
Of course, don't Bogart that song, my friend.
Yeah, so that
pass it over to me. Yes, I remember all those songs, and that's actually the book is not about me. Rick Putnam is not me. For one thing, he's better looking. He's actually I used an image of like Nick Cage when I did it, plus a whole bunch of people that I knew. But the time. The way Washington looked, the way people acted, the way a motorcycle felt, that I used. That was me. I mean, I was a motorcycle courier in 1973 for ABC.
Oh, you were?
And, yeah.
Oh,
and
nice.
that is where all that comes from. Right? I mean, that is the way the city looked. The red light district on 13th Street, which is now all high-end buildings, and just the sort of casual, gritty, rundown nature of Washington.
Was it a BMW?
It was really new. Huh?
Was it a BMW R50? It was. Okay.
Didn't
know if that's one you had. It's one you dreamed of having.
By the way, I think...
Listen, it was a much better bike than I ever owned, and they paid me to ride it. To me, it was a deal like nothing else, and I was sent to the White House because I was, the worst courier that the company had, because I had no idea where I was going, and I wouldn't drive that fast because the couriers got paid by the pickup, so they were crazy.
This is dangerous, yeah.
The other thing was that I didn't have any arrests. And the previous guy had been thrown out of the White House for a gun arrest.
That'll do it.
Terry, we are enjoying the conversation, but we're absolutely out of time. The book is called Courier, and your website. What's your website?
www.terryirving.com, and I welcome anybody. I'd love to come back. You can call me anytime.
You definitely are welcome. Yeah, the best authors always have the smallest books, a little tiny paperback, and it's just an awesome writing style, Terry. No wonder you're winning so many awards. Thank you for being on.
I wrote TV for a long time. That's where it comes from. Thank you.
That's where it comes from. Woody Allen would disagree with that, by the way. All right, we've got to move forward, and we'll take a little break, and we'll be right back. This is The Source, WOCA Ocala.
Fox News Radio, I'm Lillian Wu. Attempted murder charges filed against the man Baltimore police say slammed a stolen truck into a television station yesterday.
Employees watching in utter disbelief as the glass shattered and part of the structure started to collapse. It's a miracle nobody inside was hit in that initial attack. The suspect ran into the building up the stairs as 55 employees inside were safely evacuated.
Fox's Steve Santani. Some 300 Turkish miners saved after their worksite collapsed, but some 240 are dead.
Men who worked with me were gone just like that. It made me so sad and heartbroken. Human lives were so easily taken away.
Turkish officials have declared 3 days of mourning, and firefighters in Southern California gaining ground on a pair of wildfires thanks to calmer winds overnight. Fox News, we report, you decide.
They say every healthy relationship should have a balance of predictability and spontaneity. In fact, it is that assurance of security that makes the spontaneous possible. Your relationship with your car should be a little like that too. With our new industry-leading unlimited mileage warranty, your certified pre-owned Mercedes-Benz instills a sense of confidence. You drive away knowing that you can